What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. With week 6 almost in the books, we now know our quarterback, running back, and receiver standouts and duds. Today we're going to take a deeper look into why these guys are slotted into their categories and what we can expect from them going forward. Do me a huge favor. If you like the video, drop a like on it. Comment down below who your fantasy standouts and duds were, and make sure to subscribe for more content. Let's get right into it. First off, in our group of standouts, we have Minnesota rookie wide receiver Justin Jefferson, who caught 9 balls for 166 yards and hit pay dirt twice in yesterday's game against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta came into this game ranked 28th defensively, and it showed as they allowed 3 touchdowns through the air, 2 to Justin Jefferson and 1 to Adam Thielen. Jefferson has been on an absolute tear as of recently. After a down week last week, he bounced back big time. He's showing that he is one of the elite receivers route running in the NFL, even just as a rookie. Next week, he has a bye, which could be a great buy low opportunity for fantasy owners who are able to sustain a week of not having a receiver, as Jefferson will be a continual receiver 2 with receiver 1 upside. Jefferson's incredibly impressive stat line allowed him to lead the entire NFL in fantasy points this week from receivers with 39.6. With an absolutely stud performance, Justin Jefferson is a must-start going forward. Second on the list with 33.7 points, we have Julio Jones, who is coming back off of injury and absolutely exploded back onto the scene. The matchup was right for Julio, as Minnesota is currently 30th in the NFL in passing defense, and Julio was able to take advantage of it and looked like the stud that he has been. I would be a little weary on buying Julio just because of the injuries, and this was an incredibly positive matchup for him. Going forward, I'm not sure if he will be able to have the same production. However, I'm not sure if I would sell him either. Right now, for me, Julio is a strong hold. If you are looking to buy Julio, now would be a good time though, as next week he gets to play the Detroit Lions, who are currently 24th in the NFL in defensive passing against fantasy receivers. So he very may well be able to have another explosive game. Next up, we have Will Fuller, who has continued to stay healthy this year and looked like an absolute receiver 1 with Deshaun Watson. Will Fuller was targeted 11 times, and even though he only had 6 receptions, he still had 123 yards and a touchdown because his routes are vertical and explosive. The Titans was a great matchup for him, as they are currently 27th in the NFL in pass defense for fantasy receivers, but it's become very clear that Will Fuller is Deshaun Watson's go-to, and being Deshaun Watson's number 1 is a phenomenal place to be. Next week, the Texans are hosting the Green Bay Packers, coming off a brutal blowout from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. However, I do look for Will Fuller to get coverage from Jair Alexander, and I'm not sure if he will have the same week that he was able to have this week. However, he should still be very productive, as his air yards are absolutely phenomenal. As long as Will Fuller is healthy, he's a must-start every week, possible receiver 1 that will help your team win many games. Fourth on the list, we have A.J. Brown, who is also coming off of his injury, and though people were a little weary to see what he looked like, he looked absolutely phenomenal against the Texans. Although AJ only had 56 yards, he caught 5 of his 7 targets, and 2 of them hit pay dirt, which made for an absolutely huge week for him, and shows that he continues to be Ryan Tannehill's number 1 go-to receiver. And with Ryan Tannehill playing out of his mind the way he is, AJ Brown is a phenomenal fantasy option going forward, as long as he can stay healthy and continue to demand targets. Next week, the Tennessee Titans take on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and although this defense is viewed as a very dominant defense, they're actually 26th in the NFL against passing for fantasy wide receivers, so AJ Brown is a must-start next week. Next up, we have our fantasy receiver duds, and there was a good amount this week. First, we have Mike Evans, who went against the Green Bay defense, and even though the Buccaneers scored 38 points, Mike Evans had 1 catch for 11 yards and totaled 2.1 fantasy points. An absolute dud for Mike Evans, who has been dealing with an ankle injury all year, and you're wondering if he is still dealing with that. Plus, the addition of Chris Godwin coming back is going to take away targets. If you're looking to buy low on Mike Evans, now might be the time, as fantasy owners may be worried that with the addition of Godwin and the ankle injury, that Mike may not be the same going forward, as he is almost touchdown reliant as he has been throughout the entire year. However, I would be leery buying into Mike Evans as that offense continues to look to run the ball and feature other guys. Next week is a good matchup for Mike Evans as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take on the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are currently 19th in the NFL in points allowed to fantasy wide receivers, so this is a plus matchup for Mike Evans. Next week could be a huge bounce back week. If he continues to struggle next week, I would start to be a little bit worried about Mike Evans going forward. Next up, we have the ghost himself, T.Y. Hilton, who has continued to ghost all fantasy season. T.Y. Hilton has now become into drop range. There is no reason to roster him besides his name. If you are able to trade him for any value at all, I highly recommend it, as it seems that he and Phillip Rivers do not have a good connection, and they don't seem to feature him or manufacture him any touches at all. T.Y. had 5 targets with 1 reception for 11 yards, and next week he's heading into a bye. I would highly recommend thinking about dropping him depending on who's on your waiver wire, as T.Y. Hilton is no longer T.Y. Hilton. Next up on this list, we have JuJu Smith-Schuster. JuJu only had 4 targets, 2 receptions, and 6 yards in an absolutely dominant win from Pittsburgh over the Cleveland Browns. JuJu fantasy owners have to be worried about the immersion of Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and James Washington continuing to look strong. With this dominant defense that will keep games low scoring, along with the very nice rushing attack with James Conner and Benny Snell, it does worry me that JuJu will not be in position to be force-fed the ball as he has been in years past. With more weapons around him in low-scoring games, as a JuJu fantasy owner, I would look to see if you can move him and still sell at name value. However, next week the Pittsburgh Steelers are taking on the Tennessee Titans, who are currently 27th in the NFL in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. As both Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks had huge weeks this week, there is a possibility for a big bounce back from JuJu. If you're looking to buy low, now might be the time, and if you're looking to sell, now might be the time. JuJu's in a very weird spot, and we're going to have more data going forward to see if he really is a receiver 2 on your fantasy team. Fourth on this list, we have another highly touted wide receiver in Odell Beckham Jr. Odell had 4 targets, 2 catches, and only 25 yards. Odell has been very disappointing all year except for the Dallas game, and Dallas is an absolutely horrendous defense, so it makes sense that he was able to explode on primetime in Jerry World. That's kind of what OBJ likes to do. If I was an Odell owner, I would be very worried going forward about the connection that he and Baker have not had for 2 years now, and the rumblings of Cleveland possibly looking to move off of him. However, that could be a positive. If Odell was to go to a more potent offense with a better team, he could return to his old Odell ways. However, if he doesn't, you need to look into selling him now for name value and seeing what you can get back in return. And last on this list, we have Cooper Kupp. And even though Cooper Kupp demanded 11 targets last night, he was only able to haul in 3 of them for 11 yards. Cooper Kupp's 4.1 fantasy points will no doubt cost fantasy owners this week, and now is the time to buy in on Cooper Kupp. Even though they have a difficult matchup next week with the Chicago Bears, who are 3rd overall in allowing points to fantasy receivers, I expect Cooper Kupp to continue to demand targets at the rate he is. In a PPR, he's going to have 5 to 7 catches every week for 60 to 80 yards plus, and he's always in a great position to hit pay dirt. Based on where he plays in this offense out of the slot, Sean McVay will continue to manufacture touches for him, and I expect Cooper Kupp to have a very big bounce back going forward. If you are looking to buy, you may roll the dice next week and hope that he continues to struggle against Chicago. However, if he has a good week next week against Chicago, I think the price will be much, much higher. Thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned. This week we will be doing trade targets, waiver wire targets, and weekly previews for all the major fantasy players. Peace out, guys.